One of the things we said to ourselves very early in this film is that this was not going to be a film about little tiny creatures. This was going to be a film about a huge world.
Antz is a film about one ant in a colony of millions.
We've brought together directors Eric Darnell and Tim Johnson to explain the detailed process of the making of Antz.
We're going to take a look at how do we make an animated film, and where does it start, and how does it go about finding its way to final animation. And here, in fact, is where it starts, as storyboard drawings. Sometimes primitive, very simple, sometimes very elaborate, but always about content. It's essentially like a comic book filmed in the timing and order of the actual sequence.
Yeah, Randy Cartwright was our head of story, and he worked with anywhere from 2 other to 15 other story artists, depending upon where we are in the production, to lay these storyboards out for the film.
Ouch!
We actually have Woody Allen and Sharon Stone's voice here, but when a storyboard begins its life, it's often recorded with temporary talent, including Eric and myself and the producers and other artists and animators who lend a hand by lending their voice. And we use that as the very starting point to start cutting together images of the film.
And as you'll see as we go through the process here, a great deal of the look of the final images are derived from the layout and the design and composition and the storyboards. And the more of that we can come up with at this phase, of course, the more effective we can be down the line when production costs really crank up.
You can even see a lot of the acting is starting to happen in the drawings on screen.
Yeah, it almost has to, in fact, so we're sure we're heading in the right direction.
Now, this rather frightening-looking series of images is layout. Simon Smith, our head of layout, will work with the directors, Eric and myself, work with storyboard artists, and start to realize these drawings in the three-dimensional world of the computer. And this is the equivalent on the computer of what a stick figure is in a drawing. Primitive, but it explains the basics of what we're doing.
So it's critical that we of course get the space laid out. It is a sort of a virtual three-dimensional space, and we have to make sure that our camera is in the right place, our characters are going to be framed correctly once they go into final animation, and we have to give those animators doing the final animation the camera angle that their character is going to finally be seen from, because they need to animate to the camera. They have to play to the camera's point of view.
You can see, by the way, that we didn't have the dance cycle done yet.
Oh, that's right.
So what did we have? The drinking cycle. It's an aphid fest going on here.
But it worked in the sense that we saw sort of the density of the crowd.
And it gave us our cinematography, our first look at composition. Animation really only works with camera, even though the layout artists work to give us a sense of some of the action. The animators will strip that away and start from scratch. And here we go into the first look at unlit animation for the film.
This is like a quick rendered version, or the images are calculated very quickly on the computer with all the detail and deformation and animation in the model, but without all of the lighting that adds a whole nother level of complexity to the generation of the images.
You can see the dancers in back of Zienbala are at low resolution, simply because we don't need the information and we don't ask the computer to deal with the extra information at this point.
Rex Grignon and Raman Hoy were the supervising animators on Antz and just did an incredible job managing, if you will, these characters and making sure that we sort of maintained integrity in the way that Z performs. We have 24 animators working on the film, and all of those animators will animate all the different characters in the movie.
And that was only at the end. I think we started with 15, 16 and grew
Right.
to that level of 24 by the end of the production.
So part of what Rex and Raman did, besides, of course, doing animation and sort of setting the standard for the animation in the film, was to make sure that we maintained this level of continuity with the characters as we passed a shot from one animator to another, or gave different animators shots with the same character in it.
We worked with a choreographer, by the way, on the dance, and then story artists as well as animators refined that choreography. But it sure comes alive with lighting, and I think this transition shows that. Lighting in the computer doesn't mean simply shining a light on a surface. It also means how the surface reacts to light. Does it look like stone or dirt or skin? All of these things called textures are painted and then they're wrapped kind of like rubber wallpaper around the surfaces of the characters to create the complex patterns of light and shadow that appear on the characters. Great lighting supervisors. A team of about 30 people were headed up by Janet Rentel, Gene Cunningham, Paul Wang, and Craig Ring. The four of them working with this talented group of people of every background, from very technical to very artistic. Painters and programmers all help cooperate to produce the beautifully lit images of the film.
And again, it's often the little things that are done in lighting, as with every other specialty, that really make these images sing. You know, the highlights in the eyes of the characters, the way that the sheen on their bodies is just so.
We did a little special effects work in this as well, with making the lighting look a little like through cheesecloth, through a little Vaseline on the lens, a little glowiness to things. All of those special effects add to the filmic lighting to create a little magic moment for Z and Bala.
This is great, just to see all four versions play at once. And you can see, looking at the upper left and lower right, how similar many things are, and also see where decisions were made in the process to change things based on discoveries we made in layout or even motion.
The process is a lot of people and a lot of time. We may go through storyboarding a sequence many times, and it may be 6 months of storyboarding, going through several different story artists trying things out before it goes through layout. Layout has a couple weeks where 4 people or so work on it to perfect it. And then we go to motion. A sequence like this can take a team of our animators, perhaps about 8 of them working on this sequence. They might work on the sequence for another 8 weeks or so before it's handed to lighting. And they, again, may work with a team of about 8 people or so, taking another 8 weeks to complete it. Any given scene of the 36 scenes in our movie may actually take upwards of almost a year to actually go through the entire pathway of production.
So you can imagine how many shots are actually in production at one time. It's quite a job to manage all of that and make sure that everybody gets the feedback they need to keep moving forward.
It's true, we sing the praises of all of our artists, but the production management, actually guiding this stuff through production, is terrific. Aaron Warder, Brad Lewis, Patty Wooten were the heads of that whole production management as the producers of the film, and they really created a team that could efficiently generate all of this creative output.
So this is the section of the sequence, of course, where the drop of water comes down and traps Z.
Another look at how the story is really told so effectively with some very simple drawings before you get all of the elaborateness of computer animation, and before you get 100 people involved. You can really make an impact as a story artist on the film.
And you certainly learn a lot by seeing the whole film this way before you take it into production.
You, in particular, a sequence like this one, which is so difficult to do water in computers, our effects department, Ken Bielenberg and Philippe Gluckman in particular, as heads of the department, they look at the storyboard and they start to see the problems facing them as effects animators, and they begin to work with programmers and design all of the different technical ways in which they're going to pull off the sequence.
At this stage, the modeling department starts supplying final models for things too, so that we can lock down camera angles and what have you. And so Conrad Dutton leads a team that is working furiously to make sure that we have the high-resolution models that we need to tell the story.
You can see a lot of the very early work of the effects department. And I think I mentioned actually in the commentary during the film how we altered the height of that water drop. You can see the pre-altered height and how really very short distance they fall.
Here's the water drops that have been added.
The effects department's
Beautiful
work.
effects. Effects worked on this.
The geodesic dome.
Yes.
It looks like he's trying to escape from Epcot Center, which, if you've been there, maybe you've experienced too.
He's trapped in Buckminster Fullerene.
Great interaction between Bala and the stuff the effects guys did with that sphere. And there we have, again, the long drop this time. Compare that to what we saw in the layout, and you'll see how dramatically stronger that feeling is when we increase the height.
I think we ended up losing a lot of the water drops on the characters when we took them into lighting because it was just distracting.
Yeah.
So you certainly learn things when you take it to this very final stage, and often are making a number of adjustments.
Lighting, yeah, just extraordinary to get the water, all the refractions, and all of the strange effects that water has on light. Ouch! Here's a little bit of water on the ground, but, you know, we really just felt it was too distracting to make a big deal out of it.
Hold on, I'll get you out. Hold on.